If you are someone who struggles from frustration from missing the first trade, there's always going to be a second or even a third trade in the market. Let me explain. But before we go into that, it's important to understand my 3 steps I look for as a trader. The first thing I look at is a 15-minute fair value gap. It's very important that we're trading at a key level because otherwise we're trading effectively blind. The next thing we want to look for is a 1-minute tap into this level, right? We want to look for a 1-minute tap into this 15-minute fair value gap. The third thing we want to look for is order flow, and we're going to go over order flow with the footprint charts. Very, very important to understand how we can read the volume and the delta. So as you can see over here, prices come into this 15-minute fair value gap, and we've had a pretty good rejection of this area. So if you had missed this first initial rejection area, from here it's just a case of keying off fair value gaps. And the way we do that is by simply understanding where those fair value gaps are. So notice how we have a fair value gap resting over here in this region. So I'm just going to use the candle before. And notice how we have a rejection of this area. So price rejects off this local fair value gap off the first fair value gap over here. Now, if you miss this fair value gap, there's actually a second fair value gap or a second entry you could take within this region as well. Price respects this fair value gap before it pushes higher. But how do you know that these inefficiencies are actually going to hold? Let me tell you. This is how I knew they were going to hold, right? So I saw this massive push to the downside, but when you look carefully over here, we had 26 for 0. So what that means is that there were 26 sellers, but there were no buyers. Despite there being no buyers, the market still continued to rip up to the upside. So the reason I knew this was a strong buy is because sellers over here had failed to drive price lower. Because sellers had failed to drive price lower, you could have taken an entry over here at this position with a stop loss just below the fair value gap. And again, you could have taken a second entry if you missed the first entry over here in this region with a stop loss again near these wicks over here. Now, as you can see, both of these trades ended up playing out to TP, ended up playing out to target. So never FOMO into positions. If you miss the first one, there will be second and third opportunities.